If you could shrink down to the size of a molecule and press your ear against the wall of a single living cell, you would hear music, not silence, not chaos. A symphony so vast, so ancient, so perfectly orchestrated that it would bring you to your knees. What if every disease you've ever suffered, every anxious thought that kept you awake at 3 in the morning, every wave of sadness that washed over you without warning, was simply a note played out of tune? The universe does not speak in words. It never has. It speaks in vibrations, in pulses, in frequencies older than light itself. And tonight, we are going to learn its language. There is a code hidden beneath everything you see, everything you touch, everything you are. The stars burning billions of miles above your head right now are vibrating at a frequency. The water spiraling through the cells of your body at this very moment is vibrating at a frequency. Your heart, your bones, the electrical storm inside your skull that you call consciousness, all of it, every fragment, is humming a note in a song that was written at the birth of time itself, and you have forgotten how to hear it. The modern world has buried your signal under noise, under screens, under stress, under the relentless static of a life lived out of rhythm. But tonight, for the next 2 hours, we are going to strip all of that away. We are going to silence the interference and retune your body, your mind, your entire being back to the original frequency of life, back to the rhythm that your cells already remember, even if you have forgotten. So let your shoulders fall, let your breath slow, close your eyes, and let yourself become what you have always been, a single, luminous note in the infinite symphony of the cosmos. The music is already playing. All you have to do is listen. There is a secret hiding at the foundation of everything you have ever known, everything you have ever touched, everything you have ever loved. And it is this: nothing is solid. Nothing. The chair beneath you, the ground beneath that chair, the spinning earth beneath that ground, the vast column of rock and iron and molten fire that plunges thousands of miles to the core of this planet. None of it is solid, not truly, not at the level where reality reveals its deepest face. If you were to take any object in this room, anything at all, and magnify it 1,000 times, you would see molecules. Magnify it 1,000,000 times, and you would see atoms. Magnify it 1,000,000,000 times, and you would see a strange, ghostly cloud of electrons flickering in and out of existence around a nucleus so impossibly small that if the atom were the size of a cathedral, the nucleus would be no larger than a grain of sand sitting at the center of the nave. And if you kept going, if you pushed past even that, past the quarks, past the gluons, past every particle that science has ever named, you would arrive at something that would change the way you understand reality forever. You would find vibrations, not objects, not things, not stuff, only vibrations, tiny, inconceivably small filaments of energy trembling in the dark, each one singing a note so fine, so impossibly delicate, that it exists at the very edge of what mathematics can describe. This is what the physicists call string theory, and it is one of the most beautiful ideas the human mind has ever produced. Imagine, if you can, that the universe is not built from bricks, it is built from music. Every electron that orbits, every atom in your body, is not a hard, round pellet of matter. It is a loop of energy, a tiny vibrating string, and the note that string plays, the frequency at which it hums, determines what that particle becomes. One frequency, and it is an electron. Another frequency, and it is a quark. Another still, and it becomes a photon. A single particle of light racing across the cosmos at the only speed the universe considers absolute. The same string, the same fundamental thread of existence, simply playing a different note. You are not made of things. You are made of music, and so is everything else. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen that fills your lungs with every slow breath you are taking right now, all of it is frequency. All of it is song. The only difference between the gold in a ring and the air that surrounds it is the pitch at which reality has chosen to hum. Now hold that thought and let it expand, because this principle does not stop at the boundary of your skin. It reaches outward, endlessly outward, to the farthest edge of observable space. Every star you have ever seen burning in the night sky is a vibration. Every galaxy, every cluster of galaxies, every supercluster stretching across hundreds of millions of light years like a web of luminous silk. All of it is frequency expressing itself as form. And if you pull back far enough, if you could somehow stand outside the universe and look upon the whole of creation in a single glance, you would see something that resembles nothing so much as a vast, shimmering, infinite instrument, a celestial harp of unimaginable scale, its strings stretching from one end of existence to the other, each one trembling with a note that has been sustaining itself for nearly 14 billion years. And this is not poetry. This is measurement. In 1964, two radio astronomers named Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson pointed a large horn antenna at the sky and heard something they could not explain. A faint, persistent hiss. A whisper of microwave radiation coming from every direction at once, with no identifiable source. They checked their equipment. They cleaned the antenna. They even removed the pigeons that had nested inside it. But the hiss remained. It was everywhere. It was always there. It never stopped. What they had discovered, almost by accident, was the cosmic microwave background, the oldest sound in the universe, the faint afterglow of the moment when reality itself was born. Nearly 14 billion years ago, in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, the infant universe rang like a bell struck by the hand of creation. That ringing, that primordial vibration, expanded with space itself, stretching and cooling and softening over the eons. Until today, it exists as a faint, persistent hum permeating every cubic centimeter of the cosmos. It is here, in this room, right now. It is passing through your body at this very moment. You are bathed in it. You have always been bathed in it. Every human being who has ever lived, from the first ancestor who looked up at the stars with wonder to you, sitting here, breathing slowly in the dark, has been immersed in this ancient cosmic whisper. You cannot hear it with your ears, but your body knows it is there. Your cells know. The water in your blood and the minerals in your bones have been resonating with this background frequency since the moment you were conceived, because you are not separate from the universe. You are the universe, listening to itself. And this brings us to a phenomenon so elegant, so simple, and yet so profound that once you understand it, you will never see the world the same way again. It is called resonance. Take two tuning forks of the same frequency and place them side by side. Strike one, walk away. Within moments, the second fork, the one you never touched, will begin to sing. Not because anything physical connected them, not because any visible force passed between them, but because when one vibrating body encounters another body that shares its natural frequency, energy transfers. The second body awakens. It remembers its own voice. This is not magic, this is physics, and it is happening everywhere, all the time, at every scale of existence. The tides of the ocean resonate with the gravitational pull of the moon. The electrons in a laser resonate with one another until they lock into a single, coherent beam of light. The pendulums of two clocks mounted on the same wall will, given enough time, begin to swing in perfect unison, as though some invisible conductor had brought them into harmony. The universe is not a collection of isolated objects drifting through empty space. It is a vast, interconnected web of resonance, a system in which everything is constantly calling out to everything else, searching for the frequency that matches its own. And you are part of that web. You have always been part of it. Your heart does not beat in isolation. It synchronizes with the rhythms around it. Your brainwaves shift and adjust in response to sound, to light, to the electromagnetic field of the earth itself. You are not a closed system. You are an open instrument, a biological receiver of extraordinary sensitivity, and you are constantly, whether you know it or not, tuning yourself to the frequencies that surround you. The question is not whether you are resonating. You are always resonating. The question is what you are resonating with. And here the ancients knew something that modern science is only now beginning to rediscover. More than 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Pythagoras, the same mind that gave us the theorem that every schoolchild learns, proposed an idea so radical, so luminous, that it has haunted human thought ever since. He called it Musica Universalis, the music of the spheres. He believed that the planets, as they moved through the heavens, each produced a tone, a note determined by the speed of their orbit and their distance from the center, that the entire solar system was, in essence, a cosmic choir, singing a harmony so perfect, so constant, so ever-present that human ears had simply grown deaf to it, the way you cease to hear the hum of a refrigerator after you have lived with it long enough. For centuries, this was dismissed as mysticism, beautiful, perhaps, poetic, certainly, but not science. And then something remarkable happened. We sent instruments into space, and we discovered that Pythagoras was right, not metaphorically, literally. NASA has recorded the electromagnetic vibrations of the planets and translated them into audible sound, and what emerges is nothing short of astonishing. Saturn produces a deep, haunting drone, like a Tibetan singing bowl echoing through an infinite hall. Jupiter rumbles and crackles with the sound of ancient storms. The sun itself oscillates with a rhythm, a pulse, a heartbeat of plasma and fire that reverberates through the entire solar system. The music is real. It has always been real. We simply lacked the ears to hear it. And this is where the story turns inward. Because you, sitting here in the quiet dark, are not merely a listener. You are an instrument. Your body is composed of roughly 37 trillion cells, and every single one of them is vibrating. Your heart produces an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond your body. Your brain generates electrical oscillations that shift between distinct frequency bands. each one associated with a different state of consciousness, from the slow, rolling delta waves of deep sleep to the rapid, shimmering gamma waves of heightened awareness and insight. You are a symphony, a living, breathing, trembling symphony of frequency and resonance, and you are playing whether you choose to or not. But here is what the modern world has done. It has filled the concert hall with noise. The electromagnetic radiation from your phone, from the towers that feed it, from the power lines above your street, from the screens you stare into for hours each day. All of it is frequency. All of it is vibration. And very little of it harmonizes with the ancient rhythms your body was designed to receive. You are a receiver built to pick up the signal of the cosmos. But the static of the modern world has grown so loud, so relentless, so all-consuming, that the signal has become almost impossible to find. Almost, because it is still there. It is always still there. The cosmic microwave background has not stopped humming since the birth of time. The planets have not stopped singing. The earth beneath you still pulses with a frequency, 7.83 Hertz, discovered by the physicist Winfried Otto Schumann in 1952, a frequency so close to the natural rhythm of the human brain in a state of deep calm that the coincidence, if it is a coincidence, is almost too perfect to believe. The signal is there. It has always been there. And your body already knows how to find it, because this is not something you need to learn. It is something you need to remember. The resonance between your body and the universe is not a skill. It is your birthright. It is woven into the architecture of your cells, encoded in the very molecules that carry your genetic memory from one generation to the next. And this is where our journey deepens, because the code of the cosmos is not only written in the stars, it is written inside you. It is coiled within every strand of your DNA, humming at a frequency that connects you to the first vibration that ever was, waiting, as it has always been waiting, for you to grow quiet enough to hear it. Deep inside you, far beneath the skin, far beneath the blood, far beneath even the awareness of your own conscious mind, there is a library. It is the oldest library on earth. It is older than every book ever written, older than every language ever spoken, older than every civilization that has ever risen and crumbled back into dust. This library does not sit on shelves. It does not exist in pages or ink or stone. It is coiled. It is wound into a spiral so tight, so elegant, so impossibly precise that if you were to take the DNA from a single one of your cells and stretch it out into a straight line, it would reach nearly 2 meters in length. And yet it fits inside a space so small that 10,000 of them could rest side by side across the width of a human hair. Now multiply that by 37 trillion. That is how many cells you carry. That is how many copies of this library exist inside you at this very moment. If you unraveled all of the DNA in your body and laid it end to end, it would stretch from the earth to the sun and back again more than 300 times. You are not merely carrying a genetic code. You are carrying a cosmos of information, wound into spirals of crystalline light, humming in the dark cathedral of your cells. For more than half a century, we have understood DNA primarily as a chemical archive, a long, exquisitely ordered sequence of 4 molecular letters: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, arranged in pairs along the twisting rungs of the double helix like words in a sacred text. And this understanding has been revolutionary. It has allowed us to map the human genome, to trace the ancestry of species across billions of years, to begin, however tentatively, to read the book of life. But what if the book is not only meant to be read? What if it is also meant to be heard? This is the frontier, where biology meets physics, where chemistry dissolves into vibration, and where a new understanding of your genetic code is beginning to emerge. An understanding so profound that it may change forever the way you think about what you are. Because your DNA does not merely store information, it sings. In the 1980s, a French musician and physicist named Joël Sternheimer made a discovery that stunned the scientific community. He found that as amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, are assembled along the strand of DNA, each one emits a specific frequency, not metaphorically, not poetically, a measurable, quantifiable vibration. And when he translated those frequencies into audible sound, transposing them into the range of human hearing, what emerged was not noise, it was not static. It was not the random clatter of molecular machinery. What emerged was melody, structured, coherent, hauntingly beautiful melody. Each protein in your body has a song. The enzymes that digest your food are singing. The hemoglobin that carries oxygen through your blood is singing. The collagen that holds your skin together, the keratin in your hair, the antibodies that defend you against infection, every single one of them was composed along a strand of DNA that vibrated with a specific sequence of notes as it was being made. You are not simply a biochemical machine. You are a composition, a living, breathing, trembling musical score, written in the language of frequency and played on an instrument made of light and spiral geometry. And the instrument itself is far more extraordinary than we ever imagined. The double helix of DNA is not merely a shape, it is an antenna. Its geometry, that iconic twisting ladder that you have seen in every biology textbook, is not an accident of chemistry. It is a structure of profound electromagnetic significance. The spiral form of the helix allows it to interact with electromagnetic radiation in ways that a straight molecule never could. It can absorb frequencies. It can emit frequencies. It can, under the right conditions, act as a waveguide, channeling vibrational energy along its length, the way a fiber optic cable channels light. Your DNA is not passively sitting in the nucleus of your cells, waiting to be read by some passing enzyme. It is actively broadcasting. It is receiving. It is participating in a continuous, shimmering conversation of frequency that connects it to the electromagnetic environment of your body and, as we are beginning to discover, to the electromagnetic environment of the world beyond your body. This brings us to one of the most remarkable discoveries in modern biophysics. In the 1970s, a German physicist named Fritz Albert Popp confirmed something that had been suspected but never proven. Living cells emit light, not the kind of light you can see with your naked eye. Ultra-weak photon emissions, tiny flickers of electromagnetic radiation in the visible and ultraviolet spectrum, so faint that they can only be detected by the most sensitive instruments available. He called them biophotons, and he discovered that the primary source of this light, the place in the cell where these photons originate, is the DNA. Your genetic code is glowing. Right now, in this moment, the DNA inside every one of your 37 trillion cells is emitting a faint, coherent light. A light so perfectly ordered that Pop compared it to a laser rather than a light bulb. A light bulb emits chaotic, scattered photons, each one firing independently of the others. A laser emits photons that are locked in phase, coherent, unified, vibrating together in perfect synchrony. And your DNA, the oldest and most sacred library on Earth, is producing a light that behaves more like a laser than anything else in the biological world. You are glowing from the inside. You are luminous. You are, at the most fundamental level of your genetic architecture, a being made of coherent light. And it is here that we encounter the concept that lies at the very heart of this chapter: DNA resonance. The principle that your double helix is not merely a passive repository of genetic instructions, but an active, resonant structure, a tuning fork of molecular precision, vibrating at specific frequencies that coordinate, regulate, and harmonize the staggeringly complex processes of life within every cell of your body. Consider what resonance means at this scale. When the DNA in a cell vibrates at its natural frequency, that vibration propagates outward through the surrounding water, through the cytoplasm, through the membrane, like a stone dropped into a perfectly still pond. The ripples carry information. They carry timing. They carry the rhythm by which proteins are folded, by which enzymes are activated, by which damaged segments of the code are identified and repaired. The double helix is not simply a blueprint. It is a metronome, a master timekeeper of unimaginable precision, striking a beat so fine, so exact, that the entire molecular orchestra of the cell can synchronize its movements to a single, coherent pulse. Without this rhythm, the cell would descend into chaos. Proteins would misfold, repairs would fail. The delicate balance of creation and dissolution that sustains life would collapse. But as long as the metronome holds its beat, as long as the resonance of the helix remains clear and true, the music plays on and the cell thrives. Think of what this means. The code inside you is not confined to the microscopic world of the nucleus. It radiates outward. It sings outward. And the song it sings is not random. It is a rhythm, a pulse, a metronome of extraordinary precision, coordinating the unimaginably complex symphony of biological processes that keep you alive. Every second of every day, your body is performing millions of repairs, replacing damaged cells, synthesizing new proteins, correcting errors in genetic transcription, fighting off pathogens, balancing the chemistry of your blood, regulating your temperature, your heartbeat, your breath. And all of this, every single one of these processes, must be coordinated. They must be timed. They must be brought into harmony with one another, or the system collapses. Your DNA is the master metronome. It is the central timekeeper of the cell, the conductor standing at the podium of an orchestra so vast that no human mind could consciously direct it, reading from a score so intricate that it makes the most complex symphony ever written by human hands look like a child tapping a single note on a toy piano. But what happens when the metronome falters? What happens when the rhythm is disrupted? This is the question that may hold the key to understanding not only health, but the very nature of disease. Because every frequency can be interfered with. Every vibration can be distorted. And in the modern world, the sources of interference are everywhere. the electromagnetic radiation that saturates your environment, the chronic, unrelenting stress that keeps your nervous system locked in a state of fight or flight, the processed, devitalized food that deprives your cells of the raw materials they need to maintain their vibrational coherence. All of it is noise. All of it is static. And when the static grows loud enough, the metronome begins to lose its rhythm. The biophoton emissions of your DNA become less coherent. The light dims. The signal weakens. And the 37 trillion instruments of your biological orchestra begin, one by one, to fall out of tune. This is not a metaphor. Research in the field of biophotonics has shown that the coherence of biophoton emissions differs measurably between healthy cells and diseased cells. Cancer cells, for instance, emit biophotons in a pattern that is markedly more chaotic, less ordered, less coherent than the emissions of healthy tissue. The light has lost its laser-like quality. The music has become noise. The metronome has stumbled. But here is the revelation that lies at the heart of this chapter, the truth that should fill you not with fear, but with awe and with hope. The metronome can be restored. The rhythm can be found again. Because resonance, as we learned in the first chapter of this journey, is not a one-way street. Just as your DNA can be disrupted by the wrong frequencies, it can be restored by the right ones. Just as the wrong vibrations can cause the coherent light of your cells to scatter and dim, the right vibrations can call that light back into order. And the most powerful of these restorative frequencies is not a sound you must seek from some external device. It is the frequency of deep rest, of profound, resonant stillness. When the body descends into its deepest states of calm, when the breath slows and the brain waves drop into the long, rolling rhythms of delta and theta, something extraordinary happens at the molecular level. The noise recedes, the static fades, and the DNA, freed at last from the interference of a world that never stops shouting, finds its natural resonance again. The biophotons regain their coherence. The metronome steadies. The light returns. Deep rest is not idleness. It is not the absence of activity. It is the most profound act of biological restoration available to you. The state in which your genetic code remembers the song it has been singing since the first strand of DNA coiled itself into a spiral in the warm, ancient seas of a young Earth 4 billion years ago. You are luminous. You are vibrating. You are a library written in light and read by frequency. And the music of your genetic code does not end at the wall of the nucleus. It does not end at the boundary of the cell. It radiates outward into the space between your cells, into the fluid that surrounds them, into the tissue and the organs and the systems that together compose the living architecture of your body. And it is there, in that larger architecture, that the song of your DNA becomes something even more magnificent. Because when 37 trillion metronomes begin to pulse together, when 37 trillion spirals of light begin to vibrate in coherence, what emerges is not merely biology. It is music on a scale that the mind can barely comprehend. And that music, the music of your cells, is where our journey takes us next. Now, imagine that you are standing inside your own body, not as a thought, not as an idea, but physically, impossibly, standing inside the warm, pulsing architecture of your own living tissue, shrunk down to a scale so small that a single red blood cell drifting past you would look like a great, translucent ship gliding through a river of gold. At this scale, everything you thought you knew about your body dissolves. There are no organs here, no skin, no bone, no muscle in the way you have always pictured them. There is only motion, only rhythm, only an endless, shimmering sea of molecules, each one trembling with its own unique vibration, each one humming a note so specific, so precise, that it belongs to that molecule, and that molecule alone, the way a fingerprint belongs to a single hand. You are standing inside a symphony, and it is the most complex, the most beautiful, the most perfectly coordinated symphony that has ever been performed anywhere in the known universe. This is not poetry. This is physics. Every molecule in your body vibrates. Every protein, every enzyme, every strand of collagen, every molecule of water, every ion of calcium and sodium and potassium that drifts through the fluid between your cells, all of it is in motion. All of it is oscillating at a frequency determined by its shape, its mass, its charge, and the bonds that hold it together. This is what physicists call molecular resonance, and it is one of the most fundamental principles governing the behavior of matter at the scale of life. A molecule of hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen in your blood, vibrates at a frequency that is different from the frequency of a molecule of insulin. Insulin vibrates differently from collagen. Collagen vibrates differently from the digestive enzyme pepsin, which vibrates differently from the neurotransmitter serotonin, which vibrates differently from the water molecule that surrounds them all. Each one has what scientists call a signature frequency, a vibrational identity as unique and as unmistakable as a voice in a crowd. And just as every instrument in an orchestra produces a different tone, every molecule in your body contributes a different note to the vast, continuous chord of your biological existence. Now here is what makes this extraordinary. An orchestra with 100 musicians requires a conductor, someone to set the tempo, to cue the entrances, to hold the whole fragile edifice of harmony together with the movements of a single hand. But the orchestra inside you has no conductor. There is no central command station in your body issuing orders to 37 trillion cells, telling each molecule when to vibrate and at what frequency. And yet, the harmony holds, the music plays, the symphony sustains itself, second after second, hour after hour, year after year, for the entire duration of your life. How? How does an orchestra of this incomprehensible size and complexity maintain its coherence without a conductor? The answer is resonance itself. Remember the two tuning forks from our first chapter. Strike one, and the other begins to sing, not because of any physical connection between them, but because they share the same natural frequency. Energy transfers through the field that connects them. They lock into phase. They synchronize. Now multiply this principle by trillions. When the molecules of a healthy cell are vibrating at their correct signature frequencies, they do not need to be told how to coordinate. They resonate with one another. They fall into harmony the way two tuning forks fall into harmony, naturally, inevitably, drawn together by the physics of shared vibration. A healthy cell is not one that has been instructed to be healthy. A healthy cell is one whose molecular components are vibrating in tune. Health at the most fundamental level, is harmony. It is the state in which every note in the cellular cord is sounding clearly, without distortion, without interference, each molecule singing its own frequency in perfect relationship to every other molecule around it. And disease, at this same fundamental level, is dissonance. It is a wrong note, a frequency that has shifted out of alignment with the frequencies around it. When a protein misfolds, its vibrational signature changes. When a cell membrane becomes rigid or damaged, the frequencies it can transmit and receive are altered. When the delicate balance of ions inside and outside a cell is disrupted, the electromagnetic conversation between that cell and its neighbors becomes garbled, confused, incoherent. This is not a metaphor for disease. This may be the mechanism of disease at a level more fundamental than chemistry, more fundamental than genetics, operating at the very root of what it means for matter to be organized into life. A tumor is not simply a mass of cells that have forgotten how to stop dividing. It is a region of the body where the molecular harmony has broken down so completely that the music has become noise, where the instruments have lost their tuning and are playing against one another rather than with one another. And the result is not silence, but cacophony, a dissonance so profound that it distorts the architecture of the tissue itself. But let us return to the miracle before we dwell on its disruption, because the coordination happening inside you right now, at this very moment, is something that deserves to be contemplated with awe. Consider a single act that you perform without thinking. Your heart beats, a simple thing, you might say. A muscle contracts and relaxes 70 times a minute, 100,000 times a day. But at the molecular level, a single heartbeat is an event of staggering complexity. Millions of calcium ions must flood through thousands of channels in the membranes of cardiac muscle cells at precisely the same instant. Proteins must change their shape in a coordinated wave that sweeps across the tissue like a ripple across the surface of a pond. Enzymes must activate and deactivate in sequences timed to the millisecond. And all of this must happen in perfect synchrony, not just within a single cell, but across billions of cells simultaneously, so that the entire muscle contracts as one unified pulse rather than as a chaotic, twitching mass. Chemical signaling alone cannot account for this. Molecules diffusing through fluid, bumping into receptors, triggering cascades of chemical reactions. This process is far too slow to coordinate an event that must occur with the precision of a single heartbeat. Something else is at work, something faster, something that can communicate across the entire organ in an instant, synchronizing billions of molecular events into a single, coherent wave. That something is frequency. Electromagnetic oscillation, the vibrational field generated by the molecules themselves, propagating through the water that fills and surrounds every cell in your body at speeds that chemical diffusion could never match. And this is where water becomes central to our story, because your body is not merely a collection of cells floating in water. Your body is water. Nearly 70% of you, by mass, is water. And water is not the passive, inert solvent that classical chemistry once described. Water is a liquid crystal. It is a substance of extraordinary electromagnetic sensitivity, capable of receiving, storing, and transmitting vibrational information with a fidelity that we are only beginning to understand. The water inside your cells is not the same as the water in a glass on your table. It is structured. It is ordered. It forms layers and lattices around the surfaces of proteins and membranes, organized into a state that some researchers call the fourth phase of water, a gel-like, crystalline state that behaves less like a liquid and more like a living antenna, picking up the vibrational signatures of every molecule it touches and transmitting them outward through the body like a message carried on a wave. This is how your cells communicate at the speed of light rather than at the speed of chemistry. The vibrational signature of a molecule on one side of a cell can propagate through the structured water of the cytoplasm and reach a molecule on the other side in a fraction of the time it would take a chemical messenger to diffuse across the same distance. Scale this up, and the structured water of your body becomes a continuous, interconnected medium of vibrational communication, a crystalline network that links every cell to every other cell, allowing the molecular orchestra to play in synchrony without a conductor, without a central command, without any mechanism that classical biology has ever been able to identify. The conductor is the water itself. The conductor is the field. The conductor is resonance. And here is where the story becomes personal. Because this crystalline network, this shimmering web of structured water and molecular vibration that holds your body in harmony, is not sealed off from the world. It is exquisitely, almost terrifyingly sensitive to the environment you inhabit and the thoughts you think. Every emotion you experience has a biochemical signature, a cocktail of hormones and neurotransmitters that floods through your system and changes the vibrational landscape of your cells. Fear tightens the molecular architecture. Cortisol and adrenaline alter the charge of cell membranes, change the conformation of proteins, disrupt the crystalline order of the water that surrounds them. The harmony shifts. The chord darkens. Notes that were clear become muddied, and the music of the body takes on the tense, discordant quality of an orchestra whose musicians are gripping their instruments too tightly, playing too fast, losing the thread of the melody in their urgency to keep up. Chronic stress is not merely a psychological experience. It is a sustained act of molecular dissonance, a long, slow detuning of the biological instrument, and its effects can be measured in the altered vibrational coherence of the tissue itself. But the reverse is equally true, and this is the part that matters most. Joy has a frequency. Gratitude has a frequency. The deep, settled calm of a mind that has stopped racing and a body that has stopped bracing against a threat that exists only in imagination. This too has a frequency. And when that frequency enters the crystalline network of your body, it does not merely make you feel better in some vague, emotional sense. It physically restructures the water in your cells. It restores the coherence of the biophoton field. It allows the proteins to relax into their correct conformations, the membranes to regain their fluidity, the ions to flow through their channels in the precise, rhythmic patterns that health requires. You are not merely influenced by your environment and your emotional state. You are tuned by them. Every room you sit in, every conversation you have, every thought you allow to loop through your mind is an act of tuning, adjusting the frequencies of your molecular orchestra either toward harmony or toward dissonance, either toward coherence or toward chaos. You are a crystalline instrument of unimaginable complexity, and you are being played constantly by the world around you and the world within you. The question that emerges from this understanding is not whether frequency shapes your biology. It does. The evidence is overwhelming, and it is growing every year. The question is which frequencies, which vibrations nourish the crystalline architecture of your cells, and which ones shatter it? Which sounds, which rhythms, which tones draw the molecular orchestra into its most perfect alignment, and which ones drive it into dissonance? This question is older than you might think. It has been asked by mystics and musicians for thousands of years, and it has been answered in different ways by different cultures across the span of human history. But in our modern age, it has taken on a new urgency because we have done something that no previous generation has ever done. We have changed the fundamental tuning of our musical world. We have shifted the baseline frequency to which all of Western music is calibrated, and in doing so, we may have altered the vibrational environment in which every cell in our body is trying, moment by moment, to find its harmony. Whether this shift has brought us closer to the music of the body or further from it is a question that deserves to be examined with great care, and it is the question that awaits us now. There is a moment that almost every human being has experienced, but very few have ever stopped to truly consider. You are sitting in a car, or perhaps lying in a quiet room, and you reach for the dial of a radio. You turn it slowly. Static fills the air, a wash of white noise, shapeless and directionless, the auditory equivalent of fog. And then, as your fingers move the dial by the smallest fraction of a degree, a voice appears, or a melody, clear, distinct, suddenly present, as though it had been waiting there all along, hidden just behind the veil of noise, needing only the slightest adjustment to be found. You did not create that signal. You did not summon it into existence. It was always there, traveling through the air around you at the speed of light. All you did was tune to its frequency. All you did was align your receiver with the vibration that was already present. Now hold that image in your mind, because it is the most precise metaphor available for what we are about to explore. For the last several centuries, the Western world has been slowly, almost imperceptibly, turning the dial of its musical tuning, and there are those who believe that we have turned it just far enough to lose the signal. The story begins with a number, 440. This is the frequency, measured in hertz, in cycles per second, to which the note A above middle C is tuned in virtually every concert hall, every recording studio, every piano, every orchestra, and every digital instrument in the modern Western world. When a symphony orchestra sits down to perform, the oboist plays an A, and every musician in the ensemble adjusts their instrument to match. That A vibrates at 440 cycles per second. It is the reference point, the anchor, the foundation upon which the entire edifice of modern Western music is built. And it has been the international standard since 1953, when the International Organization for Standardization formally adopted it as the universal concert pitch. But 440 Hertz is not a law of nature. It is not a mathematical inevitability. It is not a frequency that was discovered etched into the fabric of the cosmos. It is a choice, a human decision made at a specific moment in history for reasons that are far murkier and far more contested than most people realize. And before that choice was made, the world sang at a different pitch. For centuries, there was no universal standard for musical tuning. Concert pitch varied from city to city, from church to church, from instrument maker to instrument maker. An A in Venice might vibrate at a different frequency than an A in Paris, which might differ again from an A in Leipzig. But amidst this diversity, there was a frequency that appeared again and again, a pitch that the greatest composers and instrument builders seemed to gravitate toward, as though drawn by some invisible hand. That frequency was 432 Hertz. The great Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi, whose operas are among the most celebrated works in the history of Western music, was one of its most passionate advocates. He argued publicly and forcefully that A should be tuned to 432 vibrations per second, calling it the natural tuning, the pitch that allowed the human voice to resonate most freely, most beautifully, most effortlessly with the architecture of the body that produced it. He was not alone. Mozart's tuning forks, preserved in museums, vibrate at frequencies very close to 432. The bells of many ancient cathedrals across Europe were cast to resonate at or near this pitch. It was as though, for centuries, the musicians and builders of the Western world had been unconsciously aligning themselves with a specific vibrational center, a gravitational point in the landscape of sound that felt, for reasons they could not fully articulate, like home. And when you examine the mathematics of 432, the reasons begin to reveal themselves. This number is not arbitrary. It is woven into the geometry of the natural world with a precision that borders on the uncanny. 432 is a multiple of the number 12, which is itself one of the most fundamental numbers in the architecture of time and space. There are 12 months in the year, 12 hours on the face of a clock, 12 notes in the chromatic scale. The diameter of the sun is approximately 864,000 miles, a number that is exactly 2 times 432,000. The diameter of the moon is approximately 2,160 miles, a number that is 5 times 432. These relationships may seem coincidental until you begin to notice how persistently this number and its harmonics appear in the proportions of the natural world. The number 432 has deep connections to the mathematical constant known as the golden ratio, or phi, the proportion that governs the spiral of a nautilus shell, the branching of a tree, the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, and the proportions of the human body itself. When music is tuned to 432 Hertz, its harmonics align with these natural proportions in a way that 440 Hertz simply does not. The intervals between notes become rounder, softer, more organic. The overtones, those ghostly higher frequencies that shimmer above every note like a halo of sound, arrange themselves into patterns that mirror the geometry of living systems. It is as though 432 Hertz is not merely a pitch, but a key that unlocks a door between the mathematics of sound and the mathematics of life. Now consider the other number, 440. It is only 8 Hertz higher, 8 cycles per second, a difference so small that most untrained ears cannot consciously detect it. And yet, that small difference changes everything. 8 Hertz may seem insignificant in the world of human perception, but in the world of wave physics, it is not the size of the shift that matters. It is the relationship that shift creates between the frequency and the natural world around it. When you tune A to 440, the harmonics no longer align as cleanly with the proportions found in nature. The intervals become slightly sharper, slightly more angular, slightly more rigid. The music does not lose its beauty, not by any means, but it acquires a quality that is subtly different, a quality that some describe as more aggressive, more metallic, more stimulating to the nervous system. If 432 Hz is the feeling of walking barefoot along a soft forest path, the earth warm and yielding beneath your feet, then 440 Hz is the feeling of walking along a paved road. You will still reach your destination. The scenery may still be beautiful, but there is a hardness beneath you that was not there before, a rigidity that your body can feel even if your conscious mind cannot name it. And this brings us to water. Because if there is one substance in the natural world that responds to frequency with absolute, visible, undeniable fidelity, it is water. And you, as we explored in the previous chapter, are nearly 70% water. The structured, crystalline water that fills your cells, that surrounds your proteins, that forms the medium through which every vibrational signal in your body is transmitted. This water does not merely carry sound, it is shaped by it. In experiments that have been repeated in laboratories around the world, researchers have exposed water to different frequencies and then frozen it rapidly to capture the crystalline structures that form. The results are breathtaking. Water exposed to harmonious frequencies, to classical music, to sounds tuned to 432 Hz, consistently produces crystals of extraordinary beauty, symmetrical, complex, radiant, resembling snowflakes or the petals of a flower. Water, exposed to dissonant frequencies, to harsh or chaotic sounds, produces crystals that are fragmented, irregular, broken, as though the organizing principle of the water itself had been shattered by the vibration it received. Now consider what this means for the water inside you. Every sound that enters your ears, every frequency that passes through your environment, every note of every song you have ever listened to has passed through the crystalline water of your body and left its mark. The water remembers, the water responds, the water is shaped moment by the vibrational world you inhabit. This is why the choice between 432 and 440 is not merely an academic debate among musicians and physicists. It is a question about the vibrational environment in which your cells are trying to maintain their harmony. It is a question about the water in your body and the shapes it is being asked to hold. It is, in the most literal sense available to us, a question about the tuning of your soul. When every piece of music you hear, every note that enters your body through your ears and through your skin is calibrated to a frequency that aligns with the natural proportions of the living world, the water in your cells can relax into its most coherent, most crystalline, most harmonious state. The molecular orchestra we spoke of in the previous chapter can find its tuning more easily. The metronome of your DNA can synchronize with the rhythm of the planet beneath you, whose own electromagnetic pulse, the Schumann resonance at 7.83 Hz, is a harmonic of 432, but not of 440. Everything aligns, everything fits, the signal is clear. But when the tuning is shifted, even by 8 Hz, the alignment fractures, not catastrophically, not in a way that you would notice in a single afternoon of listening, but subtly, persistently, the way a shoe that is half a size too small does not cripple you, but creates a friction, a tension, a low-grade discomfort that accumulates over miles and miles of walking until your entire posture has shifted to compensate. The modern world is tuned to 440 Hz. Every pop song on the radio, every film score, every notification sound on your phone, every piece of hold music you have ever endured while waiting on a telephone line, all of it vibrates at a pitch that is slightly, almost imperceptibly, out of alignment with the frequencies your body recognizes as home, and your body feels it. Not in the way you feel a sudden pain or a loud noise, but in the way you feel the slow, creeping fatigue of an environment that never quite lets you rest, that never quite allows the water in your cells to settle into its most perfect and natural geometry. The question we must ask is not whether these frequencies affect us. They do. The physics is clear. The behavior of water under different vibrational conditions is documented and repeatable. The question is how deeply, how pervasively, and how permanently these effects extend into the architecture of our health, our consciousness, and our connection to the rhythms of the natural world. And to answer that question, we must go beyond what we can hear. We must go beyond what we can measure with instruments and equations. We must enter the realm where sound becomes visible, where frequency reveals its geometry, where vibration stops being an invisible force and becomes a pattern you can see with your own eyes. A pattern so beautiful, so precise, and so revelatory that once you have witnessed it, the idea that sound is merely something you hear will seem as quaint and as incomplete as the idea that the earth is flat, because sound has a shape. Every frequency has a form, and the forms that emerge when vibration meets matter are about to show you something about the nature of reality that no amount of words could ever fully convey. In 1787, a German physicist named Ernst Chladni stood before an audience and performed an experiment so simple, so elegant, and so visually stunning that it has haunted the imagination of scientists and artists ever since. He took a thin metal plate, scattered fine sand across its surface, and drew a violin bow along its edge. What happened next should not have been surprising. The plate vibrated, the sand moved. But what was surprising, what silenced the room and changed the way we think about the relationship between sound and form, was the pattern the sand created. It did not scatter randomly. It did not pile up in shapeless heaps. It migrated, as though guided by an invisible intelligence, into precise, symmetrical, breathtakingly intricate geometric figures. Stars, diamonds, concentric rings, patterns of such mathematical perfection that they looked less like the result of a physical experiment and more like the work of a divine geometer drawing with an invisible compass on the surface of the plate. Chladni had not created these patterns. The sound had created them. The frequency of the vibration passing through the plate had organized the sand into a visible map of its own geometry, a portrait of the invisible, a picture of a sound. And in that moment, a door opened that has never been closed, the door between the world we can hear and the world we can see. 2 centuries later, a Swiss doctor and natural scientist named Hans Jenny took Chladni's discovery and carried it into a realm that even Chladni could not have imagined. Jenny spent years subjecting different substances, sand, powder, iron filings, and most importantly water, to controlled frequencies. And he documented the results with meticulous care. He gave this field of study a name, Cymatics, from the Greek word kyma, meaning wave. and what he found was nothing less than a visual vocabulary of vibration. Every frequency produced a unique pattern. Low frequencies created simple, broad geometries, wide circles, gentle curves, open mandala-like forms that spread across the surface of the medium with the slow, patient grace of a flower opening at dawn. As the frequency increased, the patterns became more intricate, more detailed, more densely packed with information, the way a simple melody becomes a fugue, becomes a symphony. And the relationship was absolute. The same frequency, applied to the same medium under the same conditions, always produced the same pattern. Always, without exception. Sound was not merely a vibration moving through the air. Sound was a sculptor. Sound was an architect. Sound was a force capable of imposing geometric order on physical matter, shaping it, organizing it, arranging it into patterns of extraordinary beauty and mathematical precision, using nothing but the invisible pressure of a wave. Now close your eyes for a moment and let the full weight of this revelation settle into your body. Because your body, as we have established in every chapter of this journey, is not a dry, solid, static thing. You are water. Nearly 70% of your physical mass is water. The fluid inside your cells, the fluid between your cells, the blood in your veins, the cerebrospinal fluid that bathes your brain and spinal cord, the vitreous humor that fills your eyes, all of it is water. And water, as Hans Jenny demonstrated more vividly than anyone before him, is the most responsive cymatic medium on Earth. When you pass a frequency through water, it does not merely ripple, it restructures. The molecules of water shift and rearrange, forming three-dimensional geometric patterns that mirror the frequency passing through them with a fidelity that is almost impossible to believe until you have seen it with your own eyes. Harmonious frequencies, clean tones, consonant intervals, sounds that the human ear perceives as beautiful, produce patterns of astonishing symmetry. Perfect hexagons, radiating star shapes, intricate lattice structures that resemble the geometry of snowflakes, or the petals of a lotus, or the rose windows of a medieval cathedral. And dissonant frequencies, harsh tones, clashing intervals, sounds that the ear perceives as grating or unpleasant, produce something entirely different. The geometry collapses, the symmetry shatters, the water forms jagged, irregular, fragmented shapes, patterns that look broken, chaotic, as though the organizing intelligence of the water itself has been disrupted by a vibration it cannot harmonize with. You are seeing this happen right now, not on a laboratory plate, inside yourself. Every sound that enters your body, through your ears, through your skin, through the bones of your skull, passes through the water of your tissues and leaves a cymatic imprint. The music you listened to this morning reshaped the water in your cells. The sound of traffic outside your window reshaped it. The tone of the conversation you had over dinner last night reshaped it. The hum of the fluorescent light above your desk, the notification chime of your phone, the low, persistent drone of the electrical current running through the walls of your home. All of these sounds are passing through the water of your body and creating patterns, some of them beautiful, some of them broken, some of them coherent, some of them chaotic, all of them physically altering the molecular architecture of the fluid medium in which every cell of your body is suspended. You are not merely hearing these sounds. You are being sculpted by them. You are a living, breathing, three-dimensional cymatic pattern, and the frequencies that surround you are the hands of the sculptor, shaping you, molding you, creating you anew with every passing moment. Consider what this means when we return to the question of 432 Hertz. When water is exposed to this frequency, the cymatic patterns that emerge are consistently among the most beautiful and most complex that researchers have documented. The geometry is soft, organic, radially symmetrical, resembling the patterns found again and again in the natural world, in the cross-section of a fruit, in the spiral of a shell, in the branching of a fern, in the structure of a living cell. It is as though 432 Hertz speaks the native language of water, the language in which water naturally wants to organize itself, the geometric mother tongue of the fluid that makes up most of your physical being. And when you consider that this is also the frequency that aligns with the Schumann resonance of the earth, with the proportions of the golden ratio, with the tuning that the great composers gravitated toward for centuries, the picture that emerges is not one of coincidence, it is one of coherence, a single thread of geometric harmony running from the vibration of the planet through the mathematics of nature, through the architecture of sound, and into the water of your cells. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine the cymatic patterns created by the sounds of the modern world, the sharp, metallic frequencies of urban noise, the compressed, digitally processed audio that pours from earbuds and speakers for hours each day, the electromagnetic hum of devices and power lines, vibrations that are not tuned to the geometry of nature, but to the geometry of industry, of efficiency, of mechanical repetition. The patterns these frequencies create in water are not flowers. They are not mandalas. They are fractured, asymmetrical, angular, the geometric equivalent of a shout in a quiet room, a crack in a pane of glass, a stone thrown through the surface of a still pond, not with the gentle precision of a single drop, but with the blunt, indiscriminate force of a fist. And these patterns are forming inside you, right now, in the water of your cells, in the fluid that surrounds your DNA, in the crystalline medium through which every vibrational signal in your body must pass in order to reach its destination. The geometry of your internal world is being written by the sounds you allow into your life, and most of us have never paused to consider what that geometry looks like. But cymatics reveals something even more profound than the impact of external sound, because the frequencies that shape the water of your body do not come only from outside, they come from within. Every thought you think is an electrical event. Every emotion you feel is a chemical and electromagnetic cascade that sends vibrational waves rippling through the fluid of your body. When you are afraid, the frequency of that fear, carried by the hormones and neurotransmitters of the stress response, passes through the water of your cells and creates a pattern. When you are at peace, the frequency of that peace creates a different pattern. When you hold a thought of gratitude, of compassion, of deep and genuine love, the electromagnetic signature of that thought propagates through the water of your body and shapes it, sculpts it, organizes it into geometries that are, if the research of scientists like Masaru Emoto and the principles of cymatics are to be believed, among the most beautiful and most coherent patterns that water can form. You are not merely a passive receiver of external frequencies. You are a transmitter. You are a source. The thoughts you think and the emotions you feel are cymatic forces, shaping the water of your body from the inside out. And the patterns they create are not abstract. They are physical. They are geometric. They are real. This is why intention matters. This is why the mystics and the monks and the practitioners of meditation across every culture and every century have insisted that the quality of your inner life is not separate from the quality of your physical health. They were not speaking metaphorically, they were speaking cymatically. The geometry of your thoughts becomes the geometry of your water, becomes the geometry of your cells. A mind that is habitually agitated, fearful, resentful, or chaotic is a mind that is sending chaotic frequencies through the most responsive cymatic medium on Earth, the medium that composes the vast majority of your physical body. And a mind that is habitually calm, focused, compassionate, and coherent is a mind that is sculpting the water of its own body into patterns of extraordinary beauty and structural integrity. Patterns that support the molecular harmony we explored in the previous chapter. Patterns that allow the biological orchestra to find its tuning and hold it. You are a cymatic masterpiece in progress. Every moment of your life, every sound you hear, every thought you think, every emotion you allow to ripple through the water of your being is adding a stroke to the pattern. And the pattern is never finished. It is never fixed. It is being rewritten, resculpted, reformed with every breath you take, which means that the geometry of your body is not a fate. It is a choice. Not a choice made once, but a choice made continuously, moment by moment, frequency by frequency, thought by thought. You are the sculptor and the clay. You are the sound and the water. You are the vibration and the pattern it creates. And it is here, standing at the intersection of sound and form, of vibration and geometry, of the invisible world of frequency and the visible world of pattern, that a profound question arises. If the frequencies that surround us and the frequencies that arise within us are constantly shaping the architecture of our cells, then is it possible to choose those frequencies deliberately? Is it possible to use specific sounds, specific tones, specific rhythmic patterns to guide the brain itself into states of deeper coherence, to entrain the electrical oscillations of the mind, the way a cymatic frequency entrains the molecules of water on a vibrating plate? The answer, as neuroscience is now confirming what ancient traditions have known for millennia, is yes. And the mechanism by which this happens, the bridge between the sound that enters your ears and the state of consciousness that unfolds within your mind, is a phenomenon so elegant and so powerful that it may be the single most practical tool available to anyone who wishes to reclaim sovereignty over the geometry of their own inner world. There is a clock inside your skull, not the kind you hang on a wall or strap to your wrist, not a clock made of gears and springs and numbered faces. This clock is made of electricity. It is made of roughly 86 billion neurons, each one capable of firing an electrical impulse and passing it to its neighbors. And when millions of these neurons fire together, in rhythm, in synchrony, they produce a wave, a measurable, repeatable, predictable oscillation of electrical energy that sweeps across the surface of your brain, the way a wave sweeps across the surface of the sea. And just like a wave on the sea, this oscillation has a frequency, it has a speed, it has a rhythm. And that rhythm, at any given moment, determines the state of your consciousness as surely as the position of a dial on a radio determines the station you receive. Right now, if you are alert, if your eyes are open, if your mind is engaged with the words you are hearing and processing their meaning and forming thoughts in response, your brain is most likely oscillating in what neuroscientists call the beta range, roughly 13 to 30 cycles per second. Beta is the frequency of waking consciousness. It is the frequency of analysis, of problem solving, of focused attention, of the relentless internal monologue that narrates your day from the moment you open your eyes until the moment you close them again at night. Beta is useful. It is necessary. It is the frequency that allows you to navigate the demands of the modern world, to make decisions, to plan, to react, to think your way through the thousand small puzzles that daily life presents. But beta is also the frequency of stress, of anxiety, of the mind that cannot stop spinning, of the jaw that clenches in your sleep, of the shoulders that rise toward your ears without your permission, of the thoughts that loop and repeat and refuse to release you even when you beg them to. Beta, when it becomes chronic, when it becomes the only frequency your brain knows how to produce, is the hum of a machine that has forgotten how to turn itself off. And most of us, in this relentless, overstimulated, never quiet modern world, are locked in beta from the moment we wake until the moment exhaustion finally drags us into a sleep so shallow that the brain barely descends below its daytime frequency before the alarm sounds and the cycle begins again. But your brain was not designed to live in beta. It was designed to move, to shift, to glide between frequencies the way a musician glides between notes, each one producing a different quality of experience, a different texture of awareness, a different relationship between the self and the world. Below beta lies alpha, 8 to 13 cycles per second, the frequency of relaxed awareness, of the mind that is awake but not striving, present but not grasping, the frequency you enter when you close your eyes and take a long, slow breath and feel the first softening of the muscles around your temples. Below alpha lies theta, 4 to 8 cycles per second. And here the landscape changes dramatically. Theta is the frequency of deep meditation, of vivid, dreamlike imagery that arises not from the thinking mind, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere older, somewhere that the rational intellect cannot reach or control. Theta is where insight lives, where creativity is born, where the solutions to problems that the beta mind has been grinding against for hours or days or weeks suddenly appear, fully formed, as though they had been waiting all along in a room that you simply did not have the key to enter. And below theta lies delta, half a cycle to 4 cycles per second, the slowest rhythm the brain can produce, the frequency of the deepest dreamless sleep, of the most profound physical restoration, of the state in which the body repairs its tissues, consolidates its memories, rebalances its chemistry, and performs the essential maintenance that keeps you alive and whole and functional. Delta is where healing happens. Not the healing of medicine and intervention, but the healing of the body, left alone to do what it already knows how to do, freed from the interference of a mind that will not stop thinking long enough to let the ancient biological wisdom of the organism do its work. These frequencies are not theoretical. They are not metaphorical. They are measured every day in hospitals and laboratories around the world using electroencephalography, the recording of the brain's electrical activity through electrodes placed on the scalp. And what this technology has shown us, with absolute, repeatable clarity, is that the state of your brain's electrical oscillation is not merely a reflection of your experience. It is a determinant of your experience. Shift the frequency, and you shift the state. Change the rhythm, and you change the mind. This is not a philosophical proposition. It is a neurological fact. And this is where the story becomes extraordinary. Because your brain does not generate its rhythms in isolation. It is not a sealed clock ticking away inside a soundproof vault. It is an open system. It is a receiver, exquisitely sensitive to the rhythmic stimuli of the world around it. And when it encounters an external rhythm, a pulse, a beat, a tone, a flicker, that is sufficiently consistent and sufficiently strong, it does something remarkable. It synchronizes. It adjusts its own internal oscillation to match the external rhythm. Not because it is forced to, not because any mechanism compels it, but because this is what oscillating systems do. This is what physicists call entrainment, and it is one of the most fundamental and most universal phenomena in the natural world. The word was coined in the 17th century by the Dutch physicist Christiaan Huygens, who noticed something peculiar about the pendulum clocks in his workshop. When two clocks were mounted on the same wall, their pendulums, which had been started at different times and were swinging at different speeds, would gradually, over the course of minutes or hours, adjust their motion until they were swinging in perfect synchrony. No one touched them. No one adjusted them. The vibrations traveling through the shared wall were enough. The clocks entrained to one another through nothing more than the subtle, persistent exchange of energy between two oscillating systems connected by a common medium. And this principle, Huygens discovered in wood and brass and pendulums, governs your brain. When your ears receive a rhythmic sound, the auditory cortex translates that rhythm into electrical impulses that propagate across the brain, and the brain's own oscillatory networks begin to adjust. They entrain. They synchronize with the external beat. A steady rhythm at 10 cycles per second will coax the brain toward alpha. A rhythm at 6 cycles per second will draw it toward theta. A rhythm at 2 cycles per second will pull it gently, inexorably, toward delta. The brain follows the beat. It cannot help itself. It is an oscillating system in the presence of a stronger, more consistent oscillation. And entrainment is not a choice. It is physics. This is how binaural beats work. When two tones of slightly different frequencies are played, one in each ear, the brain perceives a third tone, a phantom beat, whose frequency is equal to the difference between the two. Play 400 Hz in one ear and 406 Hz in the other, and the brain will perceive a pulsing rhythm of 6 cycles per second, a theta frequency, even though no such frequency exists in the external sound. The brain creates it. The brain entrains to it, and the state of consciousness shifts accordingly. Isochronic tones work on a similar principle, but with a different mechanism, using a single tone that is pulsed on and off at a specific rate, creating a rhythmic pattern so clear, so unambiguous, so insistent that the brain locks onto it with even greater precision. These are not New Age inventions. They are applications of a neurological principle that is as old as the brain itself, a principle that our ancestors understood intuitively, thousands of years before anyone measured a brainwave. Think of the drum, the oldest musical instrument in human history, found in every culture, on every continent, in every era of human civilization. The shamanic drum of Siberia, the djembe of West Africa, the frame drum of the ancient Mediterranean, the taiko of Japan, the bodhran of Ireland, all of them beating at tempos that cluster with remarkable consistency between 4 and 8 beats per second. Theta frequency, the frequency of trance, the frequency of vision, the frequency at which the rational mind releases its grip and the deeper layers of consciousness rise to the surface like creatures from the floor of a dark, warm ocean. Our ancestors did not have electroencephalographs. They did not know the names of brainwave bands, but they knew what happened when you sat in a circle and surrendered to a rhythm that was slower and deeper and more patient than the frantic pace of the waking mind. They knew that the drum could carry you somewhere. They knew that the chant, the repetitive, rhythmic, hypnotic chant that has been a feature of sacred practice in every tradition, from Gregorian monks to Vedic priests to the songlines of the Australian Aboriginal peoples, could shift the state of an entire group of human beings simultaneously, entraining not just one brain but dozens, hundreds, all of them locking into the same frequency, all of them descending together into a collective state of consciousness that was deeper, more unified, and more connected to something vast and ancient and wordless than anything the isolated, analytical, beta-locked modern mind can achieve on its own. This is what entrainment offers you. Not merely a tool for relaxation, though it is that. Not merely a technique for better sleep, though it is that too. It is a bridge between the frantic, fragmented, overstimulated state of the modern human brain and the slow, vast, oceanic states of consciousness that your neurology was designed to access, but that the noise of your world has made almost unreachable. When you lie down in the dark and allow a carefully constructed soundscape to wash over you, when you surrender to a rhythm that is slower than your thoughts, slower than your breath, slower than the anxious beating of your habitual heart, you are not doing something artificial. You are doing something ancient. You are allowing your brain to do what it has always wanted to do, what it was built to do, what it does every night in the brief hours of deep sleep, when the beta mind finally exhausts itself and the slower rhythms emerge like stars becoming visible as the sun goes down. And as the brain entrains, as the frequency drops from beta to alpha to theta, the chemistry of your body changes. This is not a subtle shift, it is a cascade. Cortisol, the hormone of chronic stress, begins to decrease. Serotonin, the neurotransmitter of well-being and calm, begins to increase. Melatonin, the hormone of deep sleep and cellular repair, begins to rise. The sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight branch that has been running your body like a motor stuck in high gear, begins to yield its dominance to the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of rest and restoration and repair. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your breathing deepens. The muscles that have been clenched for so long that you have forgotten they were clenched begin, one by one, to release. And at the deepest level, in the crystalline water of your cells, in the biophoton field of your DNA, the coherence begins to return. The metronome steadies, the geometry clarifies, the water restructures. You are not merely relaxing, You are being retuned. And this retuning is not random. It is not arbitrary. When the brain descends into theta and delta, it is not entering a void. It is entering a frequency range that corresponds with haunting precision to the fundamental electromagnetic rhythms of the planet itself. The Schumann resonance, that 7.83 Hertz pulse of the Earth's electromagnetic field that we encountered in our first chapter, sits squarely in the theta alpha boundary. When your brain entrains to this frequency, it is not merely calming down, it is synchronizing with the planet. It is locking into the rhythm that has been pulsing beneath every footstep of every creature that has ever walked the surface of this world. It is tuning itself to the clock speed of the Earth. And some researchers believe that it goes further than that the deepest delta rhythms, below 2 cycles per second, correspond to frequencies that permeate not just the planet, but the solar system, the galaxy, the cosmic background itself. That when the brain enters its deepest, slowest, most expansive state, it is not retreating from the universe. It is merging with it. It is dropping its boundaries, dissolving the walls of the isolated self, and resonating with the fundamental pulse of everything that is. But a bridge needs 2 ends. It needs an anchor on each side. The sound that enters your ears is one end, the external rhythm that initiates the entrainment. But the other end, the internal anchor, the place in your body where the electrical rhythms of the brain meet the physical rhythms of the organs, where the invisible world of neural oscillation becomes the tangible world of heartbeat and breath and gut and immune response. This anchor is not abstract. It is not theoretical. It is a physical structure, a nerve, the longest, most wandering, most remarkable nerve in the human body, stretching from the brainstem down through the neck, branching across the heart, threading through the lungs, weaving into the gut, touching nearly every organ in your torso. It is called the vagus nerve, and it is the thread that connects everything we have explored so far, the thread that links the frequency of the cosmos to the frequency of your cells, the thread that turns the abstract physics of resonance into the lived, felt, breathable experience of a body at peace. And it is this thread, this wandering, ancient, extraordinary nerve, that we must follow next. There is a nerve inside you that knows how to end a war. Not a war fought with weapons or armies, but the war that rages every day inside your own body. The war between tension and release, between vigilance and rest, between the part of you that is bracing for danger and the part of you that remembers what it feels like to be safe. This nerve begins at the base of your brain, in a cluster of ancient neurons nestled deep within the brainstem, a region so old in evolutionary terms that it predates language, predates thought, predates everything you think of as your conscious self. And from that origin, it descends, it wanders, it meanders through your body like a river, finding its way through a vast and varied landscape, branching and splitting and reaching into places that no other nerve in your body can reach. It wraps around your throat. It threads through the muscles of your larynx, the very muscles that produce your voice. It descends into your chest and embraces your heart, not metaphorically but physically, its fibers weaving into the cardiac tissue like the fingers of a hand gently cradling something precious. It continues downward, branching into your lungs, where it monitors and modulates the rhythm of every breath you take. It reaches into your stomach, your intestines, your liver, your spleen, your kidneys. It touches the organs of your immune system. It communicates with the microbiome, the trillions of bacteria that inhabit your gut and that influence your mood, your cognition, and your health in ways that science is only beginning to map. This single nerve, this wandering, branching, impossibly far-reaching thread of biological intelligence, connects your brain to nearly every organ in your torso. Its name is the vagus nerve, from the Latin word for wanderer, and it is, without exaggeration, the most important nerve you have never been taught about. The vagus nerve is the primary channel of the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of your autonomic nervous system that governs rest, digestion, repair, and restoration. If the sympathetic nervous system is the accelerator of your body, the system that floods you with adrenaline and cortisol and prepares every muscle and organ for fight or flight, then the parasympathetic nervous system is the brake, and the vagus nerve is the cable through which that brake signal travels. When the vagus nerve is active, when it is firing strongly and clearly, it sends a signal of safety to every organ it touches. The heart slows, the breath deepens, the muscles of the gut relax and begin the work of digestion. The immune system shifts from its inflammatory, defensive posture into a state of balanced vigilance. The adrenal glands ease their production of stress hormones. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, long-term planning, empathy, and emotional regulation, comes back online after being suppressed by the dominance of the stress response. In short, when the vagus nerve is functioning well, when its signal is strong and clear and unimpeded, your entire body receives a single, coherent message. You are safe. You can rest. You can heal. You can repair. You can return to yourself. This is what scientists call vagal tone, and it is, in essence, a measure of frequency. Not frequency in the audible sense, not a sound you can hear with your ears, but frequency in the deeper sense we have been exploring throughout this journey. Vagal tone is measured through a metric called heart rate variability, the subtle beat-to-beat variation in the timing of your heartbeat. A healthy heart does not beat like a metronome, perfectly even, perfectly mechanical. A healthy heart beats with a subtle rhythmic variation, speeding up slightly as you inhale, slowing down slightly as you exhale, a gentle oscillation that reflects the dynamic, moment-to-moment conversation between the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches of your nervous system. High heart rate variability, a strong, clear, rhythmic oscillation, indicates high vagal tone. It means the vagus nerve is firing powerfully, that the parasympathetic brake is engaged, that the body is in a state of flexible, responsive, resilient balance. Low heart rate variability, a flat, rigid, monotonous heartbeat, indicates low vagal tone. It means the vagus nerve has gone quiet, that the sympathetic accelerator is dominant, that the body is locked in a state of chronic stress, burning fuel it cannot afford to burn, running systems it cannot afford to run, unable to access the deep, restorative states that health requires. Think of it this way. Imagine a great city, a city of 37 trillion inhabitants, each one performing a specialized task, each one dependent on the others for survival. Now imagine that this city has a single master cable, a central communication line that runs from the seat of government at the top to every district, every neighborhood, every building, every room. When this cable is transmitting clearly, When the signal is strong and unbroken, the city runs smoothly. Resources are allocated efficiently. Emergencies are handled calmly. The workers in every district know what to do because the central signal is reaching them without distortion or delay. But when this cable is damaged, when the signal degrades, when static and interference creep into the line, the city begins to fragment. Districts lose communication with the center. Local systems start making decisions in isolation, often poorly. Resources are hoarded instead of shared. Inflammation, which is the body's equivalent of a local emergency response, flares up in one district after another, not because there are real emergencies, but because the local systems can no longer hear the central signal, telling them that the crisis has passed and they can stand down. This is what low vagal tone looks like inside your body. It is not merely a state of stress, it is a state of disconnection, a state in which the organs and systems of your body have lost their link to the central, calming, coordinating signal of the vagus nerve and are operating in a kind of fearful autonomy, each one reacting to perceived threats that the higher brain has long since recognized as false but cannot communicate the all clear because the line is down. And here is where everything we have explored in this journey converges on a single, practical, breathtaking truth. The vagus nerve can be tuned, its tone can be strengthened, its signal can be clarified and amplified, and the tools that do this most effectively are not pharmaceutical, they are not surgical, they are vibrational. Begin with the simplest one, the one that is available to you at every moment of every day without any equipment, any training, any cost. Your breath. The vagus nerve is intimately woven into the mechanics of respiration. When you inhale, the sympathetic nervous system briefly gains dominance. Your heart rate increases slightly. When you exhale, the vagus nerve fires, the parasympathetic system gains dominance, and your heart rate decreases. This is the physiological basis of the oscillation we call heart rate variability, and it means that every single breath you take is an opportunity to stimulate the vagus nerve. But not all breaths are equal. A shallow, rapid breath, the kind of breath that the stressed, beta-locked, sympathetically dominant modern human takes 15 to 20 times a minute without ever thinking about it, barely activates the vagus nerve at all. The exhale is too short. The signal is too brief. The brake is tapped for an instant and then released before it can take hold. But a slow, deep breath, a breath in which the exhale is deliberately extended to twice the length of the inhale. A breath that drops into the belly and expands the diaphragm and takes 6 or 7 full seconds to release. This breath is a vagal stimulus of extraordinary power. It fires the nerve deeply and sustainably. It shifts the balance of the autonomic nervous system measurably within minutes. It lowers the heart rate, reduces blood pressure, decreases cortisol, increases heart rate variability, and sends the signal of safety cascading down through every organ the vagus nerve touches. You do not need to believe this on faith. It has been measured, quantified, and published in peer-reviewed journals of cardiology, neuroscience, and psychophysiology. Your breath is a tuning tool, and the frequency to which it tunes your body is the frequency of safety. Now add sound. Because the vagus nerve does not merely pass through the throat on its way to the heart and gut. It innervates the muscles of the larynx and the pharynx. It is physically, structurally connected to your voice. And when you hum, when you produce a sustained, resonant, low-frequency vibration in your throat, The vagus nerve is stimulated directly by the mechanical vibration of the tissues it inhabits. This is not theory, this is anatomy. The vibration of humming physically massages the vagus nerve through the walls of the larynx. It activates the nerve in a way that is immediate, tangible, and measurable. Studies have shown that sustained humming increases heart rate variability, promotes parasympathetic activation, and produces measurable increases in the production of nitric oxide in the nasal sinuses, a molecule that dilates blood vessels, reduces inflammation, and supports immune function. Chanting works on the same principle, and it is no coincidence that virtually every contemplative tradition in human history has incorporated some form of sustained vocal vibration into its practices. The Buddhist Om, the Hindu mantras, the Gregorian chant, the Sufi dhikr, the overtone singing of the Mongolian shamans. All of these practices, developed independently by cultures separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, converge on the same physiological mechanism. Vibrate the throat, stimulate the vagus, send the signal of safety into the body, tune the instrument. And then there are the external frequencies. The binaural beats and isochronic tones we explored in the previous chapter do not merely entrain the brain, they entrain the vagus nerve. When the brain's electrical oscillation shifts from beta to alpha to theta, the vagus nerve responds. As the brain slows, the vagal signal strengthens. The parasympathetic system rises. The entire autonomic landscape of the body shifts from the jagged, reactive, high-frequency terrain of chronic stress to the smooth, rolling, low-frequency terrain of deep rest. The brain and the vagus nerve are not separate systems. They are two ends of the same string, and when you pluck one end, the other vibrates in sympathy. This is the bridge we spoke of. This is the physical, anatomical link between the sound that enters your ears and the healing that unfolds in your cells. The vagus nerve is the bridge between the frequency of your mind and the frequency of your body. It is the master volume knob for internal noise. Turn it in one direction, and the noise of stress and inflammation and fear grows louder, drowning out the subtle signals of repair and restoration. Turn it in the other direction, and the noise recedes. And in the space that remains, the body remembers what it already knows how to do. It heals, it balances, it restores. Imagine your vagus nerve right now. Imagine it as a single, luminous thread running from the base of your brain down through your throat, around your heart, into the depths of your body. Imagine that with every slow exhale, this thread glows a little brighter. Imagine that with every low, resonant hum you could make in the back of your throat, the vibration travels along this thread like a pulse of warm light, reaching your heart, reaching your gut, reaching the farthest, most hidden corners of your body, carrying with it a message that is older than language, older than thought, older than the nervous system itself. The message is safety. The message is stillness. The message is the permission your body has been waiting for, perhaps for years, perhaps for decades, to stop defending and start healing. And as the vagal signal strengthens, as the noise recedes, as the body descends into the deepest states of parasympathetic rest, something begins to happen that cannot be fully explained by neuroscience or physiology or any of the frameworks we have explored so far. The frequencies slow, the oscillations deepen. The brain drops below delta, below the measurable, below the named and the categorized. into a state that the instruments can detect only as a kind of vast, coherent stillness. Not the stillness of absence, not the stillness of nothing happening, but the stillness of everything happening at once, in perfect synchrony, without interference, without conflict, without noise. It is the stillness that meditators have described for millennia as the ground of being. It is the frequency beneath all frequencies, the silence that is not empty, but full, the space from which every vibration arises and to which every vibration returns. And it is this silence, this profound, luminous, infinite stillness at the core of your being that awaits us now. We have traveled a great distance together, you and I. We began at the edge of the known universe, listening for the faint hum of the cosmic microwave background, the echo of the first vibration that ever was. We spiraled inward, past the singing strings of subatomic reality, past the luminous antenna of your DNA, past the molecular orchestra of your cells, past the cymatic geometry of your water, past the entrainment of your brain, past the wandering thread of your vagus nerve carrying its ancient signal of safety into the deepest chambers of your body. We have followed the frequency of life from the birth of the cosmos to the interior of a single human cell. And now, at last, we arrive at the place where all frequencies end. Or rather, the place where all frequencies begin. They are the same place, and it is not a place at all. It is a silence, but before we enter that silence, let us understand what it is, because the silence we are approaching is not the silence of an empty room. It is not the silence of absence, of deprivation, of something missing. It is the most full, the most dense, the most overwhelmingly present state that physics has ever described. It is called the zero-point field. In the early decades of the 20th century, as quantum mechanics began to reveal the strange, shimmering, paradoxical nature of reality at its smallest scale, physicists encountered a problem they did not expect. They had assumed, reasonably enough, that if you could remove all matter and all energy from a given region of space, you would be left with nothing. A perfect vacuum, an absolute void, empty space in the most literal sense of the word. But when they did the mathematics, when they followed the equations of quantum field theory to their logical conclusion, they found that the void was not empty. It was alive. Even at absolute zero, even in a state where no thermal energy remains, where no particles are present, where every measurable quantity has been reduced to its lowest possible value, the fabric of space itself continues to vibrate. It fluctuates. It shimmers with what physicists call zero-point energy, a vast, omnipresent, inexhaustible sea of quantum fluctuation that exists beneath and within and behind everything that we call the physical world. This is not a hypothesis. This is not speculation. The zero-point energy of the vacuum has been measured. Its effects have been observed in laboratories. It exerts a measurable force, known as the Casimir effect, between two metal plates placed close enough together in a vacuum. The nothing between the plates pushes them together because the nothing is not nothing. It is everything. It is the ground state of reality itself, the lowest and most fundamental frequency of existence, the hum beneath the hum, beneath the hum. And it contains more energy in a single cubic centimeter of empty space than all the matter in the observable universe combined. Let that settle into you. The void is not empty. The silence is not silent. The space between the atoms of your body, the space between the stars, the space that you have always been taught to think of as nothing, is in fact the most energetically dense state in all of physics, and it is vibrating. But it is vibrating at such a fundamental level, at such a foundational frequency, that it registers to our instruments and to our senses not as sound, not as light, not as heat, but as stillness, as silence, as the quiet, omnipresent ground upon which every other vibration in the universe is built. This is the mother frequency, not the loudest note in the symphony, but the silence from which all notes arise. Not the brightest light in the sky, but the darkness that gives light its meaning. Not a vibration among other vibrations, but the field in which all vibration becomes possible. And here is the paradox that lies at the heart of everything we have explored. We have spent this entire journey learning about frequency, about vibration, about the music of strings and cells and brainwaves and nerves. We have learned that everything vibrates, that health is harmony, that disease is dissonance, that the body is an instrument and the universe is a symphony. All of this is true, but the deepest truth, the truth that the mystics of every tradition have pointed toward with their inadequate words and their luminous silence, is that the ultimate state of harmony is not a vibration at all. It is the stillness from which vibration is born. It is the 0 point, the ground state, the silence that is not the opposite of sound but the source of it. And when the human body and the human mind reach a state of such profound alignment, such perfect coherence, that every frequency within them is balanced, every dissonance resolved, every conflict between one oscillation and another dissolved into unity, what remains is not a louder sound. What remains is quiet. A quiet so deep, so vast, so complete that it does not feel like the absence of something. It feels like the presence of everything. This is what the contemplatives have always known. This is what the meditator discovers in the deepest states of practice. When the breath has slowed to almost nothing, when the brain waves have descended below delta, when the body has become so still that the boundary between the self and the surrounding space begins to dissolve like salt in warm water. There is a threshold beyond which the individual vibration of the self becomes so quiet, so coherent, so perfectly attuned that it merges with the background vibration of the field itself. And in that merging, something extraordinary happens. The sense of separation vanishes. The feeling of being a small, isolated instrument playing its solitary note in an indifferent void gives way to the recognition that you are not the instrument. You are the concert hall. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. You are not a frequency moving through space. You are the space in which all frequencies move. This is not a belief. It is not a faith. It is an experience. It has been reported with remarkable consistency by human beings across every culture, every century, every spiritual tradition, and increasingly every neuroscience laboratory that has studied the brains of advanced meditators. When the mind reaches its deepest state of coherent stillness, the default mode network, the constellation of brain regions responsible for the sense of a separate self, goes quiet. The boundaries of the ego soften. The relentless narration of the thinking mind, the voice that says, "I am here," I am this, I am separate, I am alone, falls silent. And in that silence, what remains is not nothing. What remains is awareness itself. Pure, unbounded, luminous awareness. The field in which every thought, every sensation, every perception, every vibration has always been arising, the way waves arise in an ocean that is never diminished by their coming and never augmented by their going. You have been this field your entire life. You have never not been this field. Every experience you have ever had, every sound you have ever heard, every thought you have ever thought, every emotion that has ever moved through you like weather moving through a sky, all of it has arisen within this silent, spacious awareness that you are. The frequencies came and went. The vibrations rose and fell. The music played and faded. But the silence in which it all occurred never changed. It never wavered. It never diminished. It was there before your first breath, and it will be there after your last, because it is not a product of your body or your brain. Your body and your brain are products of it. They are vibrations arising within the field, patterns in the silence, notes in the infinite, unwritten score of the 0 point. And this is why the journey we have taken tonight was never really about sound. It was about coming home. Every chapter, every concept, every frequency and resonance and harmony we explored was a stepping stone leading you back to the place you never left. The cosmic hum was not out there. It was in here. The DNA metronome was not a mechanism. It was a memory, your cells remembering the silence from which they arose. The molecular orchestra was not performing for an audience. It was performing as an expression of the field itself, the way a fountain is an expression of the water that feeds it. The cymatics, the entrainment, the vagal signal, all of it was the universe inside you, tuning itself back to its own source. The way a river does not decide to flow toward the sea, but simply follows the deepest truth of its own nature. And now you are here, at the source, at the silence, at the place where no more tuning is needed, because there is nothing left to tune. The instrument and the music and the silence are one. They have always been one. The only thing that ever made them seem separate was the noise, the static, the interference of a mind that had forgotten how to be still. And tonight, you remembered, not with your intellect, not with your understanding, but with something deeper, something that does not need words or concepts or explanations, something that simply knows, the way the ocean knows how to be wet, the way gravity knows how to pull, the way the silence at the center of your being knows how to hold every vibration that has ever existed without being disturbed by any of them. So let yourself rest now. Let the last traces of effort dissolve. You do not need to hold on to anything you have learned tonight. It is already inside you. It has always been inside you. The frequencies will continue to play. Your heart will continue to beat. Your cells will continue to hum their ancient song. Your DNA will continue to glow with its faint, coherent light. But beneath all of it, beneath every vibration, beneath every frequency, beneath every note, in the endless symphony of your biological existence, there is a silence that nothing can touch. It is your silence. It has your name written in it, or rather, your name is a sound that it made, once, out of pure joy, to hear what it would sound like to be you. Let your breath become so slow that you cannot tell where the inhale ends and the exhale begins. Let the boundary between your body and the darkness around you grow soft, grow thin, grow transparent. You are not falling asleep. You are falling inward. You are falling toward the center of yourself, which is also the center of everything, which is also the silence that was here before the first star ignited and will be here long after the last one burns out. You are that silence. You have always been that silence. And tonight, for the first time in perhaps a very long time, the silence knows that you know. Rest now. The music will take care of itself. The frequencies will find their harmony without your help. The universe will continue its ancient, luminous hum, and you will vibrate with it, gently, effortlessly, perfectly. Not because you are trying, but because you cannot help it. Because vibrating with the cosmos is what you are. Because you are not a stranger in this universe, but its own voice, whispering itself to sleep. The silence holds you. It has always held you, and it will hold you still, long after these words have ended, long after this night has passed, long after the memory of everything you heard has faded into the quiet from which it came. You are the frequency of life. You are the stillness from which it sings, and you are, at last, home.